Hello everybody, this is Sarahscopic with Eskalia playing Asphyxia, and we're about to hear a poem recited by Samantha.
Yep.
It's up to you.
This poem, Christabel, was one she had been turning around in her head for a while. The poem opened with the fair and sweet heroine Christabel wandering through the woods at night when she happened to stumble upon a most beautiful maiden lying underneath an oak tree. This maiden was Geraldine. Samantha devoted no small period of time to describing the mysterious Geraldine, with her smooth skin and the light blue veins that crossed underneath it, and the precious gems that sparkled within her long, flowing hair. Christabel helped the weakened Geraldine to her feet and offered her shelter in her home, for as Samantha explained, Christabel was a sweet child, quick to trust and eager to please.
This is going to be an allegory for something.
However, when Christabel and Geraldine returned to the fair heroine's home and there lay in bed together, Geraldine became morose, and her stricken voice seemed to hint at a rather more sinister nature to her character.
Uh-oh. What? So, how was it? Did you enjoy it?
Samantha peered at her fellow classmates from underneath her eyelashes. They sat there quietly in a small circle like campers sitting in a blazing fire. Nobody was saying anything. Why weren't they saying anything? Had her small germ of an idea really been so bad? That was what Lillian said. Lillian said, though her poetry was technically commendable, her subject matter was often too strange, too off-putting, too unintelligible for the pleasure of other people.
Jesus.
It doesn't really have any bearing on real life, does it? It's just fancy.
Yeah, what a realist Lillian is.
That single comment of Lillian's had hurt more than any other criticism of her work had. Samantha's poetry is often suffused with bizarre twists and turns. It was true, but it was not mere fancy. She poured her real emotions into those poems, and she implored the reader to understand how tortured and troubled her main characters were, just as she herself was. But other people did not see it that way, not even Lillian, her best friend. Past best friend, anyway. Maybe that was because her characters were more frequently troubled by the supernatural than the mundane. However, despite the supernatural, there was always a touch of guilt and anxiety running underneath the gothic. Maybe nothing could tell just how intense Samantha's poetic efforts were, or, if they could, it only troubled them rather than endearing them.
I guess that's why Georgia likes her poetry.
Yeah. There was a pause. Georgia frowned, her arms folded. It was interesting, I suppose. I suppose I somewhat enjoyed it, but...
But...
What happens next?
What do you mean?
The story. It just ends without any kind of conclusion. It's not very satisfying.
Much like these two pairs.
Yeah, much like the love interest.
Yeah.
Samantha giggled, coyly pushing her two index fingers together.
I haven't really thought that far ahead yet. I'm not very good at forward thinking. I just wanted to write something in that kind of setting with those kinds of characters.
You mean two lesbians?
Oh, they finally said it!
Thank
God! Oh, jeez! You can interpret however you want, really. Isn't that one of the joys
Look
of...
at the blush.
Right?
Yeah.
Joys of...
Absolutely.
Absolutely it was.
It's not a case of interpretation. It was pretty out in the open. They started sharing the same bed the moment they first meet each other.
That's because it's gothic. Emotions are always heightened in gothic stories. I thought it made sense anyway. You'll just have to suspend your disbelief.
No, they're just lesbians.
They're just lesbians. Well, I thought it was very atmospheric. Thank you, Percy. I just hope everything works out for Christabel in the end.
Samantha nodded, her head bowed in thought.
I hope things work out for her, too. Oh, geez, she's Christabel.
She's Christabel and Lillian is the other girl. Maybe that was why Samantha had been unable to finish the poem. She had placed too much of herself inside her characters, as per usual, and was consequently struggling with how to direct their fates.
Always a problem.
Though the main reason Samantha dabbled in the supernatural was to remove herself from her subjects, she could not help but entangle her own thoughts and feelings within their words. As a writer, it was impossible for her to extricate herself from the subject matter. Unfortunately, that meant most of her poetry was shocking and painful, with no sweetness to allay the ever-present anxieties that snaked through her verses. How could she ever hope to craft a suitable conclusion for her story when her own fate remained unknown, shrouded in darkness? She could not create a suitable ending until she knew for herself whether Lillian, like Geraldine, was an antidote to her sickened soul or the very thing that had been poisoning it to begin with.
Oh, jeez.
She did not know. How could she know? Samantha had always been bad at understanding herself. Maybe that's why she could not truly understand the motives of her own characters. Anyway, since Sam shared her story, I think it's Roberta's turn now.
Oh, no. You okay?
Sorry about that. Roberta, who was sitting to Samantha's left, shifted uncomfortably.
Why? I never said I was going to take part. This is silly.
Aw, come on, Bobby. Don't be like that. We're just having a bit of fun.
Well, it isn't fun for me. I have no desire to sit here and tell ghost stories.
Like you had no desire to sit and play the game of life?
Like you have no desire to sit in my bed tonight?
Yeah. Roberta glowered.
Glowered, you got it.
You have already broken one of your vows tonight, Bobby. You might as well break another.
Oh, shoot! How many vows are we gonna break tonight, you two?
Get between my legs.
That is exactly the sort of reckless attitude I expect from you, Georgia.
Why, thank you. Rules exist to be broken, personal rules more than others. How can you ever hope to expand your horizons if you allow your mind to be so constrained?
Oh my god. No matter what you say, that does not change the fact that telling horror stories is an asinine practice. I want no part in it.
Oh? Georgia smirked. She looked very much like a spider who had managed to ensnare a particularly juicy fly within its web. Are you scared, Bobby? Is that why you're being so uptight, even more so than usual?
I am not being uptight. It's ridiculous, that's all. We should be asleep. We need to be up by 7:30 tomorrow, and it must be 11 already. The teachers will be checking our rooms to see whether we are in our beds or not, and if they discover we're still awake, we will get in trouble. Man, why don't we have sprites with our pajamas?
I'm so mad about this.
I'm real mad about that. That's disappointing.
They won't bother coming inside. If we keep the lights turned off and our voices low, nobody will know. Georgia pressed a finger against her lips, a devilish little smirk playing across her lips. Her voice soft, strangely sensual, she whispered, "It'll be our little secret."
Oh my god!
And she capped it off with a wink.
Oh my god! Oh, jeez!
Roberta twitched. She did not want to squirm underneath George's piercing stare, but her expression was so consuming, so encompassing, it was difficult for her to remain calm. Oh my... These two.
Have sex already! Oh my gosh!
Samantha's like getting tons of ideas for stories, I guarantee.
I guarantee it. Percy's like, what?
Percy's like, I need to talk to Harry.
I need to talk to Harry right now. Oh my gosh, these two. It's making me mad. Don't look at me like that.
Like what?
Like I'm a chicken and you're a wolf. It's troubling. Because you like that.
Mm-hmm. You don't like it?
I'm gonna start laughing so hard. Not one bit. I already said I didn't.
Oh, so pouty. Are you sure some masochistic chickens might enjoy being eaten?
Oh my god. Well, I wouldn't.
Don't worry, Bobby. I don't bite that much.
Oh my god. Stop being so disgusting. You're trying my patience, Georgia.
Only because it's so enjoyable, Bobby. I'll tell you what. If you promise to share with us a scary story, then I'll stop bothering you. I'll even try to remember to be civil for you for the rest of the trip. How does that sound?
Oh, it sounds half-hearted. Being civil to somebody for 2 days should not be such a difficult task.
I agree, it should not be, especially for a lady such as myself. But you do make it rather hard for a girl to be civil towards you, Bobby. I'm sure you must understand this better than anyone. How do you battle back your feelings of revulsion when you look at your reflection in the mirror every morning? Roberta's right eye twitched, as it was wont to do when she spent too much time in George's less than delightful company, but she tried to maintain her cool. She did not want to give Georgia the satisfaction of seeing her blush. Her hair was so auburn, her skin so fair, blushing often made her look as though her head was on fire.
I know that feeling. I blush very easily. It's really bad.
She does.
Shut up. Fact. It's very obvious and it's very annoying. Because it always has to be pointed out. And then you blush even more.
Yeah.
It's awful.
She's gonna start blushing now.
No, stop.
See, you can see it right there.
You stop.
All over this.
You stop it right now. Bruises on your back. Anyway.
This was in direct contrast to Georgia, who was pale and interesting at all times, no matter how often she went out in the sun.
And she liked that pale skin.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll try to tell a story. I have little interest in the subject matter, though, so I cannot promise you anything.
Ooh, this should be good. A private reading performed by dear old Bobby herself.
Are you being sarcastic, Georgia?
Who, me? Georgia pressed one hand against her breast, her eyes wide as though offended. Never! I am scandalized that you would accuse me of such a thing, Bobby.
Yes. Anyway,
Roberta cleared her throat. The sound reverberated through the room, breaking through the stillness of the night air.
Once upon a time...
Once upon a time? I thought we were supposed to be telling horror stories, Bobby, not fairy tales.
I am going to tell you a story, if only you would be silent so that I may finish it. That's right. Don't interrupt, Georgia.
All right, I'm listening. Oh my god. Once upon a time, there was a little old woman who went for a walk in the woods.
What just happened?
As she was wandering through the woods, she happened to stumble upon a little house with a thatched roof. She peered through the window and noticed that nobody was home. Next, she tried the doorknob and, to her surprise, realized that the door had been left unlocked. Given that she was a meddlesome old woman, the kind who spread gossip with more than glee than rats spread disease, she decided to let herself inside, even though this was against the law, and that was really very naughty.
Oh my gosh.
When the woman entered the house, she noticed there were 3 bowls of porridge on the table. Without sparing a single thought for whoever had prepared the porridge, the old woman decided to eat it, for her stomach was rumbling. She tasted the first bowl of porridge, but it was too hot. The next bowl of porridge was too cold, and the third bowl of porridge, however, was just right, and she liked it so much she ate all of it. After this, she felt rather tired, so she decided to sit down at the breakfast table to regain her strength. Just as before, there were 3 chairs. The old woman sat in the first chair, but it was too hard. She sat in the second, but it was too soft. The third chair, however, was just right. The old woman, however, was not. She was too heavy, and the chair collapsed beneath her.
Oh, jeez.
The meddlesome old woman cursed and decided to lie down, for she had hurt her back after falling from the chair. She went upstairs to the bedroom and found there were 3 beds, all made up nicely, as though they were waiting for her. The old woman lay down in the first bed, but it was too hard. She lay down in the second bed, but it was too soft. Then she lay down in the third bed, which was just right.
Why is it an old woman? It's Goldilocks is supposed to be a young girl.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is weird.
In fact, she found the third bed so comfortable she pulled the blankets up underneath her chin and went right to sleep. By this time, the owners of the house had returned from their early morning stroll to have breakfast, which they had left to cool. They gathered around the breakfast table, yet their excitement soon changed to cries of alarm when they saw what had happened.
Yeah.
"Somebody's been eating my porridge," exclaimed the father. "Somebody's been eating my porridge," exclaimed the mother. "Somebody's been eating my porridge, and they've eaten it all up," exclaimed the child. It was at this point they noticed their wooden chairs around the breakfast table, which were in a complete state of disarray, the cushions strewn across the ground. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," exclaimed the father. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," exclaimed the mother. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair and they've broken it," exclaimed the child.
Poor child! I never thought about that. The child has like the worst of it. It's so bad.
Yeah, that's right.
Ate all the porridge, broke the chair.
Now they're sleeping in their bed. That's why they ate her.
Poor guy.
The father, the mother, and the son decided amongst themselves there must be an intruder in their home, so they crept up to their bedroom to catch the criminal. When they entered their homey bedroom, they noticed at once that their sheets were rumpled and covered in leaves and twigs. "Somebody has been lying in my bed," exclaimed the father.
Why are there leaves and twigs? How dirty is this woman?
I don't know. Somebody's been lying in my bed," exclaimed the mother. "Somebody's been lying in my bed, and here she is," exclaimed the child. The old woman had heard the deep, gruff voice of the father, but she was so deeply asleep it sounded like the howling of the wind to her. She had heard the voice of the mother, but it was so soft and gentle it sounded like a fairy speaking from within a dream. However, the child's voice was so shrill and sharp it woke her up at once. She started, eyes opening. When she saw the family, she shrieked in alarm and tumbled out of bed. You see, the cottage did not belong to any normal family. They were a family of bears. The old woman got to her feet with a tremendous shriek and ran over to the window, which was open. She jumped out of it, fearful for her life, and whether she broke her neck from the fall or not, or found her way out of the forest, was arrested by the police for manifold crimes, I do not know. But the 3 bears never saw her again. Doesn't that story end with her getting eaten?
Not always. Sometimes it is, and sometimes, like, in the children's one, like, she usually runs away. I think in other versions, like, the bears just accept her and, like, have her stay over. Maybe some older version she's eaten, but I don't think so.
Silence descended, broken only by the sound of the wind in the background. Roberta sat there, her face slowly turning red despite herself, her hands clenched into fists so hard her fingernails dug into her palms.
Can't wait for her to tell us why she thinks it's a horror story. I finished my story. Feel free to say something. Anything.
I would if I could, Bobby, but at the moment I am lost for words. Consider that an accomplishment, for it does not happen often.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm astounded by your idiocy.
Idiocy? What was so idiotic about my story? It wasn't really a horror story. Of course it was! They were a family of bears! Bears! I thought you would like that reveal, Georgia. You did, after all, try to argue on behalf of keeping a bear in your dorm room.
Oh, so you included that twist for me. I feel flattered, Bobby. It's a shame your story fell short.
She got bear ears! What the heck? What was wrong with it?
It sounded more like a children's fairy tale to me, and an incredibly moralizing one at that.
Well, breaking into other people's homes and eating their food is wrong. The old woman should be punished for it.
Then you should have made the bears eat her. That at least would have made the story a bit more exciting.
They wouldn't eat her. It would be out of character. Weren't you listening? They were good and gentle bears. They're the wronged heroes of this piece, so they certainly can't commit murder. Anyway, the punishment has to fit the crime. Theft is not punishable by death in this day and age.
And you wonder why people think you're such a bore. You cannot even use your imagination when trying to tell a story.
I'm not a bore. I'm trying to teach people important life lessons. Oh my gosh, I love it. What's wrong, pray tell, with having morals?
They're all so insipid, that's all. It's dull.
Maybe if you threw in a few more zombies, it could work? That's your solution to everything, Samantha.
You're being too easy on her, Sam. There is no salvaging Bobby's story. She has absolutely no talent. In fact, she is a void where talent goes to die.
But my genius is something you can't understand, that's all. Just because I prefer to write about simple things, important things, it doesn't mean that I have no talent.
Wow, somebody sounds defensive. Georgia smiled, evidently pleased with herself, and folded her arms. Oh well, fools are always the ones who complain the loudest. Being angry is the privilege of a loser, so I won't take that away from you, Bobby, my friend.
I can't.
I love her.
Oh, you can go too far, Georgia. Oh, whatever, who cares? I don't care at all anymore.
Roberta suddenly rose to her feet, her face bright red, and stalked over to her bed like a wounded cat.
Join her, Georgia! I'm going to sleep, I'm tired. Roberta!
But it was too late. Roberta had already taken hold of her pajamas and had turned to exit the room.
Oh, man.
Samantha noted with mild amusement that her pajamas were covered with little faces of cartoon bears. That was kind of cute.
Okay, at least we got some description.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Come on.
I do want to know what they're all wearing.
I know.
Roberta would probably hit her if she pointed this out, though.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why George asked about the bears in her room.
Maybe. Samantha shifted in bed, turning this way and that. Though it was cold outside, it felt unbearably stuffy within the four walls of her temporary bedroom. She drifted in and out of sleep, her uneasy dreams filled with sinister, shadowy figures. I wanted to hear George's story.
I know.
Where was Lillian? Samantha tried to search for her, but she could not find her, though she was sure Lillian was there somewhere, hiding just out of reach. It was Lillian's absence that tormented Samantha more than the strange creatures born from her overactive imagination, and it was that which made her cry out as she stumbled through the empty void. She didn't want to be alone anymore. She was tired of being alone. She just wanted to see Lillian, but she could not even within her dreams. More like nightmares. Samantha often had nightmares. She could not remember the last time she had a pleasant night's sleep and awoke into a new day feeling even slightly refreshed. Instead, she kept odd hours and always felt exhausted. Her sleep was inevitably either a gulf of nothingness she could not remember or an invitation for her brain to conjure up plots more sinister and convoluted than those of Gothic novels. Lillian. Samantha awoke for perhaps the third time that night, Lillian's name dying on her lips. Her eyes fluttered open. The room was dark and it was hard to see. Samantha lifted her head, looking around about her surroundings. It seemed like the others were asleep. Even Georgia was lying in bed, hands folded on her chest like a corpse in a coffin. It must have been late if even Georgia Byron had finally succumbed to sleep. What time was it? Samantha didn't have a watch. She would only lose or break it, and there wasn't a clock in the bedroom, so she did not know.
That is weird. How do they know when to get up?
Yeah. Samantha sat up, supporting her body with her arms. Her whole body arched and her head pounded. She looked to the window, but the curtains were drawn.
Oh.
Oh, cute.
Oh, that's cute.
Suppressing a yawn with one hand, ghostly white in the darkness, Samantha got uneasily to her feet. The floorboard creaked underneath her, as though reprimanding her for being awake at such an hour. Roberta, lying in the bed beside Samantha's, mumbled something incoherent in her sleep, but she did not stir. Silently, or as silently as she could manage, Samantha walked towards the window. Her emotions were unsure, footsteps shuffling, not just from exhaustion, but from trepidation, too. Having only just awoken, everything felt unreal, and the world seemed to swim before her eyes. Samantha was not entirely convinced she was truly awake, even though she could feel the cool wooden floor against her toes, making them curl.
I'm not sure why she has slits in her nightgown.
I don't know.
And why she's wearing a choker.
Yeah.
But it's still really pretty.
Yeah, it is really pretty. This bedroom was strange and unfamiliar with its sparse furnishings and empty cupboards, and it was not very welcoming. It made Samantha feel like a stranger, and in a sense, she was. Samantha did not only feel like a stranger in this room, but in her own body. As she drew the curtains by the window, she marveled at her hands as they obeyed her commands, as though they belonged to somebody else. What was Samantha Taylor Coleridge really? She was nothing more than a few collected memories stacked on one on top of the other and some ephemeral emotions. The rest of her face, her arms, her legs, her newly cut hair, was nothing more than extra baggage, an unwieldy mass of flesh she had to drag along behind her. Samantha stared out the window, eyes searching, blinking inside the cage of her skull. The sky outside was dark, but streaked with umber. Though the windows were closed, she could faintly hear the sound of birds chirping amongst themselves in the boughs of trees outside the hostel. It must have been about 4 a.m. then. Samantha wasn't entirely sure, but that seemed like a good estimate.
I can never estimate time. Like, it looks like 5. It's 2. Oh, okay.
Samantha had lain awake on many a sleepless night, enough to tell. They were supposed to get up at 7:30 for another fun session of being subjected to Miss Pope's sadism.
Jesus.
Even though Samantha felt sleepy, she didn't know if she'd be able to fall asleep now, not on her own. Instead, she foresaw a long 3.5 hours of tossing and turning in her bed, like a person buried alive underneath the ground, with only her anxious thoughts to comfort her. This was no good. She was in no mood for thinking. Not right now. Her head hurt too much. Samantha closed the curtains once more and turned on her heels. She looked at Roberta, lying in bed, her hair gathered up around her face and secured in place with strips of paper.
Paper?
Paper? Yeah, what?
I don't understand that.
Roberta's hair wasn't naturally curly, was it?
Oh, I guess it's her way of curling it. That's strange.
Samantha could remember upon her first meeting with Roberta, her hair had been perfectly straight, falling down to her waist. She had not started to curl it until she was in year 8.
As someone who has dead straight hair, that is, wow, that takes a lot of paper then, because she has really long hair.
Yeah.
It is not easy to curl really long hair, because the weight of it just, like, you can curl it more easily when it's short, but when it's long, oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. It lasts that long throughout the day. She was using a magic product.
Though it was silly, the sight of Roberta's hair made Samantha feel distinctly nostalgic. She almost felt as though she had returned to the days of her childhood when she had been a stranger in the corridors of St. Mary's and she had missed her home. In those days, Samantha had spent a great deal of time with Roberta, and she had not known a girl such as Lillian Wordsworth existed in the world.
So Roberta's like her oldest friend too, which makes it sadder.
Had Samantha been happier back in those halcyon pre-Lillian days? She was not sure. Though she had not been anxious about Lillian back then, she had been anxious about other things. No matter what happened in Samantha's life, she always managed to find things to worry about.
I'm sorry, Bobby.
Samantha apologized to Roberta under her breath, then approached the other girl. She walked quietly, with soft footsteps like a cat, but perhaps there was no point in attempting to be considerate, not given what she did next. She's gonna stab her!
Roberta, wake up.
Roberta mumbled something under her breath and turned her head away, her brow furrowing. Samantha was undeterred. She reached forward and gently shook Roberta's arm.
Roberta. Huh?
Roberta yawned, one eyelid opening slowly. For a moment, she looked distinctly cyclopean, with only one eye open and alert, but the other soon followed suit.
Sam, what is it?
Now that Roberta was awake, Samantha suddenly felt guilty for waking her. She held her hands together, wringing them at her front, and looked at the floor.
I'm sorry for waking you. I know it was wrong with me, but I couldn't sleep. What do you mean? What time is it? It's so dark in here. I am a person that, like, you do not want to wake me for like a stupid reason. If you want to see Sarah instantly pissed off, wake me up when I'm not supposed to be woken up. I have gotten in so much trouble with my mother by, like, accidentally being rude to her because she has woken me up when I didn't need to be awakened for something.
Yikes.
It's been bad. I don't, like, get, like, you know, you're dumb. But I do get, like, what? What do you want? Like, I get really mad. It's really bad. One time, I was asleep with one of my boyfriends, and he woke me up. He was like, I had a bad dream. I was like, yeah? Well, and I just wanted to go back to sleep.
Yeah, did you die in it? Because you're about to.
I know, I'm so mad. It's, I'm not sure. I think it's 4 a.m. 4? Or maybe 5, I don't know. Jeez, what a pain. I know I'm a pain. Please forgive me for being such a thorn at your side, Bobby. Oh my gosh. I had a bad dream. If I don't know, I'll be able to get back to sleep again. To tell you the truth, I feel a little shaken. Please hold me.
It was true. She could feel sweat gathering on her brow as though she were suffering from a fever.
So you're saying you can't get back to sleep? That's right.
Even though fatigue was evident on Roberta's face, she still had enough energy to roll her eyes.
What are you, 6 years old? I'm 17. Oh,
alright, we finally get
put
an
the
answer to that.
answer.
Okay.
It don't look 17, but
No.
alright. That makes sense more. I'm 17, actually. I know that's stupid. So, what do you want from me?
Snuggles?
You kinda. I know
Oh my god.
Oh, I know this might sound silly, but I was wondering if I could share your bed for a little while. It looks more inviting than my own does right now. These beds are tiny, Sam. I can hardly fit in myself without adding you too. I know, but we used to sleep together a lot when we were little, don't you remember? Of course I remember. How could I forget? You tossed and turned all night like a paraplegic octopus. I've lost count of how many times you woke me up by jamming an elbow or a knee into my side. I'm sorry about that. I always have been restless. I think I was even more so back then.
When Samantha and Roberta had been young, new arrivals at St. Mary's, they were placed in the same dormitory, their rooms directly opposite one another.
Actually, before we go to the story, we're going to stop here because we're a little bit running over time, but we will pick this up next time about these two cute childhood friends. Maybe this is the route we're taking?
Maybe because we chose to talk to them.
Yeah. They talked to Roberta, yeah.
Oh, do we get a threesome if we had talked to Georgia and Percy?
Shoot!
We'll go back and find out.
We'll find out next time for you. Thank you guys for watching. Peace, joy, love, and joy, everybody. Mwah.